In all the world, there are few places so symbolic of man's highest aspirations. For centuries, the world's highest mountain remained unknown to Western civilization. Straddling the border of Tibet and Nepal, one of the most remote corners of the world, it was only discovered during a survey of India by the British government in 1852. Identified only as Peak 15, it was subsequently named in honor of the General Surveyor, Sir George Everest, granting to that man an immortality he could have hardly envisaged. Yet despite this staggering discovery, it would be almost 70 years before the first exploration would be made. In 1921, a reconnaissance expedition set out for Everest. They were walking into the unknown. In the words of George Lee Mallory, whose name will be inextricably linked to that of Everest, "First we have to find this mountain. We are walking off the edge of the map." The following year, a formal attempt was made to climb Everest, and for the first time, its terrifying defenses became known. Everest is an enormous pyramid with 3 wide faces and 3 ridges. 2 of these, the northeast and the west ridges, run out for almost 3 miles. The third, the southeast ridge, falls abruptly in less than a mile to the South Col, a very high saddle between Everest and its neighbor Lhotse. It's hard to imagine the awesome mass of Everest. In all the world, there are only 14 mountains which exceed 8,000 meters, or 26,400 feet. And yet these only reached the shoulders of Everest. The peak of Everest is 8,849 meters high, or 29,032 feet. The first expedition of 1922 was classic siege style. This takes the form of an imaginary pyramid. At the broad base are tons of supplies and dozens of skilled climbers, high-altitude porters and support staff. Gradually, small teams force the route up the mountain, paving the way for supplies to be carried up to stock upper camps. At each camp, there are fewer climbers and fewer supplies, until at the last and highest camp, there is just one tiny tent and enough supplies for a summit bid by 2 people. In tweed jackets and studded leather boots, with only ice axes and primitive crampons, inadequately nourished and supplied, they challenged the most fearsome mountain in the world. They climbed higher than man had ever been. They forced new frontiers of medical science, and with pitiful little except courage, they set a standard for the world. Leading a siege assault demands skill, not only in logistics, but in human relations. Because those climbers who are asked to do the hard climbing on the way up are unlikely to have enough strength left for a summit bid. There are many and sometimes gruesome accounts of what happens to the body and the brain at extreme altitude without oxygen. Among many early side effects, proven in compression chamber experiments, is the disappearance of capacity for controlled thinking after 26,000 feet. In 1953, shortly before leaving England to climb Everest, expedition leader John Hunt gave this vivid description.
The rarefied air surrounding the higher part of Everest obviously provides insufficient oxygen for the lungs and therefore makes movement increasingly difficult. Lack of oxygen slows down and blurs the mental process. It has by now been sufficiently proved that the ill effects of altitude on the climber may at least be retarded by a careful regime of what we call acclimatization, a gradual getting used to increasing height over a considerable period of time. It can now be said with confidence that the climber, following this policy of gradualness, can move up to and at a height of about 23,000 feet and remain there for his purpose of climbing a high mountain. Once above that height, the policy of gradualness breaks down, for the muscle tissues begin to deteriorate and the climber's strength, resistance to cold and so on, weakens. He tends to lose the promptings of appetite. From about 23,000 feet then, the climber is increasingly unacclimatized. The effort of mind and strength required to continue become infinitely greater.
To the early pioneers, the use of oxygen seemed unsportsmanlike. Using it makes the atmosphere at the summit of Everest roughly the equivalent of a 20,000-foot peak. To the purist, that took away the exclusive challenge of the world's highest mountain. But without oxygen, the effect of high altitude is devastating. In the words of one climber, it's like growing old very quickly. Every movement is an intense effort. Critical judgments become cloudy, and hallucinations begin.
My uncle, General Charles Bruce, was the leader of the first attempt on Mount Everest in 1922. The first party to try to climb the mountain reached an altitude of 26,700 feet. At the time, it looked as if the summit was literally within a stone's throw of where we were standing. In point of fact, the summit was 1,800 feet above us.
An anonymous author once observed, the mountain offers hardship and danger, and an unobtainable goal. Such a peak seldom exerts its strength. It sets high conditions of victory and lets them defeat themselves. Only if some persist, stripped of essentials, they will continue the fight. Then it will act. There is no shame in being beaten by such an antagonist. As the pyramid of people fighting up the mountain decreased to a few, expectations soared. Nobody had ever reached that beautiful but harshly defended summit. Watchers with their telescopes saw the men moving up to where it seemed they could not fail. Then the mist obliterated them from view. Colin Grant Crawford was on the expedition under General Charles Bruce.
Mallory, Somerville and I, with 14 porters, climbing on 4 separate ropes. There was a report like a pistol shot, and a crack opened in the snow between him and me, and ran up beyond him for hundreds of feet round the mountainside. At the same time, the slope on which we were standing started to move. Very soon after, I found myself buried among blocks of moving snow and ice, so that it was almost impossible to breathe. My ice axe was dragged out of my hand. I realized that our chances of survival were small. Suddenly the avalanche came to a stop. I had been carried down almost 150 feet. Somerville, Mallory, the porter and I extricated ourselves, and then saw 4 more porters 100 feet below us. We then began to dig in the bed of the avalanche between us and those who had escaped, but could find nothing. 7 of our porters were killed in this fall. Mallory said to me his main regret over the accident was that no European had been killed with the porters. Morsehead's hands were badly frostbitten and were swathed in bandages. He lost the joints of several fingers. I remember seeing Norton with a tile round his neck, having a frostbitten ear trimmed off with a pair of scissors by Dr. Longstaff. All those who had taken part in the attempt considerably affected.
In that first expedition of 1922, the price of challenging Everest was made clear. And yet, however great the cost, the human challenge was greater. Only 2 years later, another British expedition with many of the same members wrote one of the most intriguing chapters in the story of mankind against this mountain.